Welcome back, guys. It's Neo or Neo Nays from Say It in Tagalog. I honestly don't memorize my own intro, or I don't even have my own intro. And welcome back to another video on Tagalog grammar, as I always do. And I miss making these videos. School has really been making me busy, and second quarter is about to start soon. So I decided to maybe possibly like upload one more video, or maybe a couple more before everything gets really busy. So yeah, let's just get straight into it, right? In today's video, we're gonna be talking about the most common Tagalog mistake every beginner makes. And this mistake, I would say, is just like a tiny, minor mistake that it's not really a big deal, but like even a native would just like not mind or something. Like if they just wouldn't really mind if you did it, but you know it's just something that I noticed and I really want to inform people about, and which is the reason why this video exists, and that's why I made this presentation for all of you. So yeah, let's get straight into it. And that mistake is about accent and stress markers. And now you may be wondering, what the hell is that supposed to be, or what do you mean? Well, what I'm just trying to say is that, accent and stress markers, in case you don't realize, is stressing a syllable in a word, right? Like a word can have multiple syllables, and you emphasize one of those syllables, and that's how that works. Now, in English, if you kind of don't pronounce it in the correct way, it just sounds kind of off, but it doesn't mean a different word. It's still the same word. It just sounds weird, right? Like for example, if you were to say the word right table, which is the correct way, but if you said table, it just sounds weird, right? Like what is the table? What is that, right? It just sounds awkward. It doesn't sound right, but it doesn't really change the meaning. It's just awkward, and people are just gonna look at you like, what table? What is that? Why you gotta say it like that? But the funny thing about Tagalog is that it changes meaning once you change the way you pronounce it. It's a unique feature that I'm not sure exists in other languages. Maybe a tonal language could kind of suffice, but that's about tones, which is like how it goes high and down. But this one is about like the emphasis, or like the syllable, which syllable you're emphasizing, and you could even say it's like the speed of it, because like just yeah, it's like the emphasized syllable kind of influences the speed in some way. So yeah, doesn't so Tagalog doesn't really count as a tonal language, if I were to say. Like here's an example right here, right? These two words would be pronounced the exact same way. Oh, sorry. They would be spelt the same way, but they are pronounced differently. So for example, right, this word here that we're seeing here, if you say it as basa, then it would be to read. But if you say basa, it means wet. I don't know why that's the case and why these words mean what they mean. That's just how it is for some reason. So yeah, and I mean, this is kind of like just a very basic example, and even if you kind of mistake this, like natives would just kind of let it pass, like, oh yeah, no, I get that. But it is something that a lot of beginners make as well, and we can even put this in a sentence, and like they would be spelt the exact same way, and they look the same on paper, but when pronounced they mean something else, right? So yeah, let's see the sentence example here, right? If I were to say binasa ko ang libro, that means I read the book in past tense. Binasa ko, right? Keep in mind how I pronounce it. Binasa. But if you pronounce it differently, like say, binasa ko ang libro, that means I wet the book. Like I sprinkled water and it got wet. It means something different. That's why you need to be careful about which syllable you're emphasizing, because it can possibly change meaning. Sometimes, in some occasions, it doesn't change meaning. It just sounds weird. Like if you said in this example, you would just say "binasa ko ang libro." That's just plain weird. Like I really don't know what you're trying to say with that one. It just sounds like nothing. Like binasa. It's so weird. But yeah, that's the reason why you should be careful about how it's pronounced. And another reason to be careful about pronouncing words incorrectly is that I have like this dangerous example that I have over here. All right. So these words would be spelt the same on paper, but they're not pronounced the same, and they would have a different meaning. Like if you say suso, that means snail. But if you say suso, it means a woman's breast. And if you're gonna ask me if that's like used in some malicious way, I don't even know if I can say that on YouTube. Um, yeah, like that word is used in a not so great context, so you should be careful when saying the word for snail. All right, make sure you say it as suso, not suso. Okay, that's something else. Do not mistake that. Okay, be careful. Be careful out there. So yeah, but I mean, in general, you should be aware of how words are pronounced and which syllable is accented at like at all costs. I mean, even in other languages, like even in English, it would be good to know which syllable you should be accenting, like which one is correct, because like I said, the earlier example, right? Instead of saying table, you say table. So yeah, um, because if you don't pronounce it correctly, then it's just gonna sound really awkward. And you might ask me, how do I know the syllable accent for each word? Like, is there some sort of systematic way that I can always know which syllable to accent in a word? And my answer to that is that's the neat part. You don't. You don't. There is no systematic way to know which syllable will be accented. There's just none. I mean, how about English? I mean, like there is no way that I know which syllable is accented or how a word is pronounced. I've just kind of like seen it so many times to the point that I just know how to pronounce it, right? Exactly. Yeah, like I mean, why would you make language learning systematic? I mean, language isn't necessarily perfect. It's not like it has grammar rules, but sometimes it's kind of broken, or you know, yeah, like it's broken sometimes, or there's exceptions. That's the word I was looking for. And yeah, and that's the reason why, like in general, just systematic learning of a language just doesn't really work. And instead, you should just focus on like trying to understand, or just diving in and listening and reading the content of your target language. And this is the part where I introduce Refold, which is something that I always mention in my videos. I'm going to try and make it a brief explanation as much as I can. So Refold, I created this bottom part here. I created like this quote myself so that I can explain what it is, but I'm not sure if someone else already made this. I don't know. And that quote is, before you learn how to speak a language, you first need to know how to understand the language. That's basically the idea of Refold. Before you start speaking, first of all, you got to know what they're saying. Like language learning apps will tell you, learn a language in 3 weeks. Yeah, sure, you'll be able to speak a language, but you won't understand what they're talking to you. Like, let's say they gave you useful phrases and like how to ask for directions, but then the person you're talking to just replies to you and say like, ano, pupunta ka dito, tapos dediretso ka doon, tapos pwede ka magtanong doon sa alley doon. Like, you don't know what they're saying. You don't understand. What was the point of the language learning app, right? That's why learning to understand comes first before you speak. Like even when you were as a kid, right? How did you learn your native language? Did you learn verb grammars? Did you learn a systematic way to know about every single pronunciation? And did you do exercise every day? No, you just spoke to people every day, like someone would speak to you and give you vocabulary. That's just how immersion works, and that's how Refold works. That's how they recommend language learning. And they even have like certain stages to it, like stage 0, stage 1, 2, and then 3. And stage 2, I would say, is like the part you'll be spending the most amount of time in. That's going to be the longest process, where you're going to be like basically like immersing yourself in content for a really long time, to the point that you can just read something in your target language as if it's nothing, as if you read English like it's nothing. Same would go for the target language. You don't you kind of keep reading to the point that it doesn't feel like you're putting so much effort into reading something you don't understand, and you just kind of like use context clues and stuff like that. You just get used to it. And if you want to learn more about Refold, link is in the description. You can read the roadmap about it, And they also have a Discord server if you want to talk to some people about it. And speaking of Discord servers, I have my own Discord server that is very inactive, and I'm inviting you to make it active. But yeah, um, this is the end of the presentation. I decided not to make some sort of end screen or something. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this sort of short video about Tagalog grammar. I'll be making future videos, well, maybe, if I don't procrastinate. So yeah, I'll be busy, but I'm gonna try my best to still upload some content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Mayo signing out. I don't really have an outro, so whatever.